We're on quadrant 4. Sorry about the continuity stuff, right? So video 1 and video 5 are recorded like a year ago, but I lost somehow videos 2, 3, and 4. But it's kind of cool. So we're gonna party on with it. Okay. So we've already talked about quadrant 1, which I'm just kind of pointing to, but you can see in the clip on the front, right? The grid that I'm talking about. Quadrant 1, we talked about what matters. This is how you would use this tool. First, what's the thing that you want to do? What's your goal? Next, it's going to be what thoughts and feelings are you having that take you away from that goal? Okay. Then we come up here, right, into observable, right? Because so far what we've been talking about is unobservable. It's not something that you can see. And above the line is the stuff that we can see, right? And then this line is also like moving us towards our values and moving us away, or moving us towards our goals and moving us away. So we talked about what thoughts and feelings are moving us away, which is inside of us, right? And then we talked about what actions are we doing in results of these thoughts and feelings happening that are moving us away. Now we want to talk about what actions could we do. This aligns with the committed action component of the Hexaflex. What actions could we take? Even practicing a thought habits would move us towards our goals. Okay, so in the last video, I talked about an example where mom and I have 2 little kids. The little girl, the youngest, tends to cry a lot, and the boy, the older boy, he's 5, tends to get angry at the tears. He gets really upset. This happens all day, every day, and it's infuriating sometimes. And it's really hard for me not to snap, right? I have the thoughts and feelings of this is too hard, I can't hold this. I get really fused to those, to use some ACT language. It results in me trying to alleviate these big thoughts and feelings of being triggered by all of their noise and all of their frustration and all of their big feelings, and yelling at them, because that's kind of my old habitual training, right? Because that was kind of what happened to me, right? Which is why I don't necessarily want to do that in the future. So I snap, and it makes it worse. I get more upset, and then I feel bad about myself because it's not actually moving me towards what matters to me in my goal. So what can I do instead? Okay, what would be some committed action that I could start thinking that could be more helpful? And this is also a behavioral experiment because it's not 100% going to work. So we have to be also open to the idea that this is an ongoing process that we're going to do over and over and over again. And couldn't it be interesting to get curious about what could work more? Because what I've got on this side of my graph isn't really working. Okay? We could list some things that we already know that are going to work, but we could also list some things that we are willing to try out, right? So for me, in this scenario that I've done, I need to manage my own nervous system, because part of the problem is I have this thought of, I can't hold this. This is too much. It's too loud. This is too frustrating. I can't do it. So what could be something I could do or tell myself that would help me in that moment, right? For me, I practice a lot of breath work. I practice a lot of meditation. I practice a lot of self as context work of observing my thoughts. So it could be just noticing that I'm having all these big thoughts, and that this whole process of snapping doesn't work. So what would work, right? Well, I need to manage my nervous system. I need to take some deep breaths, because what I actually want to do is to let them cry and to comfort them and be like, it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to be mean. It's okay to be sad, right? You can feel sad. Let's go ahead and sit down and be sad for a minute. Let's go ahead and be angry. Maybe I can direct my son to a place where he could be angry, like his room, where he can hit his pillows, or he can throw things, because we've made his room so that it's kind of okay for him to do what he needs to do in there. Or he can go continue playing the game that he wanted to play with his sister on his own, which is never the same, but it's an option. Or we can sit down with my daughter and she can just have a good cry. She can sit on my lap. I can tell her that it's okay to feel sad, right? So what thoughts and feelings are going to allow me to get to that end result that I actually want to give? Well, some of them are going to be to diffuse the idea that I've got shit to do, right? That's important. So that's one that gets in my way. Like I'm doing my work because I work from home, but I created my work from home so that I could handle my babies, right? So it's actually pretty important for me to just set my work down and deal with this right now, even though that's challenging. It can also be knowing when I'm going to have time to do that work. That's invading upon that, right? So I know that in an hour, my husband will be done with his calls and I'll be able to do my work then. I can put it down for now. I can deal with Elwyn right now. It could also be just the idea that I'm too triggered and I'm really upset. And then noticing that I want that to go away. And then noticing that that by itself is an ACT concept of acceptance, right? That could I be willing to hold some space for this big trigger, right? Could I be willing to let them be upset? Because that's actually what I want, is to let them be upset so that I can also be upset, right? It's okay for me to be upset here. What can I do to be upset in a way that can model that? Because I'm mad too, I'm really upset. Or, oh, I can imagine that that was really upsetting and frustrating, right? Or sad. I feel sad too sometimes. Isn't that interesting, right? So in this example, which you don't have to use this example. You can use whatever example is true for you. I'm coming up with scenarios of thought and action that I get to play with to decide if they're helpful, right? To get me to more of what I want, which is my goal. What's interesting is that when I do some of those things, right, it shifts the way that I feel. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. I do think that there's some components that get a little bit missed in the ACT matrix, like we just talked about, like that acceptance component. I think sometimes it doesn't necessarily get fully represented here in this model. But I do think that this is a really beautiful strategy, especially if you're familiar with the Hexaflex training or the Hexaflex in general, because I think it informs the matrix in a way that's going to make it super functional. It's a really lovely little strategy of just filling out the grid to draw awareness, to build some clarity, and to create a quick behavioral experiment to try out. As long as the expectation is that it's an ongoing process, right? We might not get it right the first time, and that's okay, because that's what life is, and that's acceptance, right? That's the point that I felt a little bit missed in the matrix, but we know it, so we can use it. So remember, this next video was recorded like a year ago, so it'll be interesting to see how that is. Maybe I'll even go back and re-record videos 1 and the end. Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that this is helpful, because the ACT matrix can be very helpful, especially if you have a grasp on the Hexaflex. Bye.